Welcome, gamers, to episode 1 of this Let's Play of Shadow Empire, a fantastic sort of war game, sort of role-play game, sort of a bit of everything. In the last episode, episode 0, we spent a lot of time really just going through the detailed planet generation process within the game, just to I wanted to really just give some impression as to the diversity of the actual game itself, and it's just incredible what the game can actually generate for you to play on. And we've rolled a planet here that's got a bit of everything really, so that'll be quite good fun. By the way, one thing I didn't actually show is if I just go back out and quit the game just very, very briefly. You may not be aware of this if you haven't played the game for some time, but if you go and when you create a world, you can, if I just go and load a save game, it actually creates a file called last planet generated. Now, if you like what a planet that you've actually generated and think you may want to be playing that again in the future, just rename that to something else, and then that will always be available for you to then sort of kick off and start playing pretty much whenever you want to actually sort of have that one actually going. So that's definitely one I think that is worth having a bit of a play with to sort of get that one going. In fact, that one does the dates. Oh, that's okay. I've just opened this one up. I'm thinking, hang on, the dates are wrong. No, that's what happens just after the actual planet is generated. You can start a new game using this same file. So anyway, I thought I'd just sort of point that one out. But if you do like a planet, just change the name of it, and that way you can keep on sort of replaying it if you like. And it'll always play differently, but the actual planet itself will be the same. Anyway, let's leave that one where that is, and actually we will load our save game. We'll just load this one now, and here we go. Now, in this episode, I really want to be focusing on the first moves. So, and I've sort of told myself in this one, I usually try to sort of keep them to around about half an hour, like 30 minutes for each episode. I'm not going to try to constrain myself. I'm going to try to just have a theme for a video and just go forward. And I'm thinking that a lot of these will be longer than the half hour that I normally give myself to sort of go through things. So I will be meandering through, and this first one will be what I do at the start of of any game, basically of Shadow Empire. And a lot of these things will be what I do at the start of every single every single turn. Like, for example, when you first start off, you're going to have like a decision we've got 4 decisions to make in through this area. And you'll see that we've got like national decisions in through here. We've got the ascension speech. Now, you'll always start off with your ascension speech as to who wants you to do what and what the benefits are of that. So you'll always tend to have this one come up, the Ascension speech, on your very, very first turn. Also, we've got org decisions, like organisational decisions. We have to select our first organisation. Now, don't feel that you need to actually do any of these things right at the very, very start. You really need to evaluate where you are before you start making any decisions whatsoever. Now, the zone decisions are usually the ones that I do first, if there's something going on. Because they tend to be the ones that are the most difficult for you to manage at different times. And we'll have a look at this one as an example. This one here, we've got our actual Bismarck is our actual town that we've started with. And it's saying, can we actually upgrade this to a big town? And the thought is, yeah, why not? But we'll talk about this when we go in there. Now, there's a few things that we need to consider. Like, for example, this is going to cost 10 political points, and we've only got 12. So essentially, we'll have 2 left to do everything else. We also have diplomatic decisions up through here as well. And so Pegalar Imperium demands an oath of peace. And so these guys are actually looking for us to sort of become more peaceful with them. And in that case, sort of like have an actual a treaty essentially with them, where we won't actually cross each other's borders. Now, that may be good for us, it may not be good for us. We need to actually figure all these things out before we start. So have a bit of a look, to have a bit of a feel for this one. Either one of these will cost me 1 PP, that's 10 or 1. The org decisions are 4 PP, so if I go with an organisation, I can't do this zone decision. Not that it really matters that much. I mean, we can sort of, but I think it's going to be more important to pick which of these organisations we want to go with. Now, just off the cuff, the ones that I really focus on initially are the Military Council, the Interior Council, and the Economic Council. It's probably out of those 3 usually. Occasionally, I will pick the Model Design Council. Now, I'll let you know that one of the ways I play the game is that I don't play with the Foreign Affairs Council. This is too easy to win. So if you are wanting to play with diplomacy, then by all means choose it. But I actually like to play with the combat, so I actually don't choose this particular council. I never bring that into the game. So that's just one of the little house rules that I have for myself is that particular one there. Now, with all of these different things, like in this national decision as well, another 1 PP, depending on the level we're going to choose in through there. So we really can't do this zone city upgrade. So, but I'll leave it there so we can talk about what it means and what the impact, if we could afford it. So let's just go and click on the decision tree up through here, which will then sort of close things off. Now, the first thing I like to do is just get a bit of a feel for who's around me. So just go up into here to the S map, the strategic map. This will then sort of show you where you are on the actual world, so we can see that we're on the South Pole, and we have a few different people around us. We've got non-aligned forces, which are down through this side, and up through this side, up through here. So the non-aligned forces are where we may have like marauders wandering around. We could have, for example, so mainly it'll be like things like marauders, could be beasts, like a lot of beasts would be sort of in that sort of territory around on the actual map itself. And so then they're not coordinated at all. They tend to just wander in. Some of them will wander in and then want to sort of get aggressive. Some of them will wander in and want to sit on roads, for example. They will actually still target roads, but not in a coordinated way. Then we have like a none in through here, which there will be nothing actually for that particular one. Then we've got two other factions that we're seeing. We see the Altona Imperium back over through here, off into the east, east of where we actually are. And we also have the Pegalar Imperium, who wants to have a peace treaty with us. Now, is there any reason not to have the peace treaty with them? Like just off the cuff, I don't think that would be a problem. And so with this one, I'm already sort of starting now think in my head, this may be a way for us to attack, and this may be a way for us to have a secure border, so we can just keep on pushing out and seeing if we can locate wherever the animals or marauders might be in these non-aligned zones. So that's sort of where we are there. Now that's the regimes. You often don't need to really look too much at this one initially, but you've got like the actual zones as well, which will then sort of show you the various zones on the map. So that's Odessa, Altona. Then we've got Rasselian, and these are just zone names. There may be a free folk town in there with that name. Who knows? There could be all sorts of different things. Sometimes these other zones will be split off into two, but this one is actually fairly large. The Ratinum zone in through this side. This will become more important later on in the game when we have a Secret Service Council. Then we've got the stats, which can be quite interesting as well, where we can start to sort of have a bit of a look to see what's going on the actual world itself. So, for example, we've got all the resources that we know of, which is just a handful back in around here. We can't zoom in, unfortunately, to see what's going on. So all the resources we can either just sort by oil, so we do actually have oil there. We've got metals, and we will have rare metals, I think, underneath there as well, but we can hardly see it. Radioactives we don't know any of yet. Water, there is actually an ice mine, potential ice mine, but we won't need that in this map. This water won't be a problem. This is the rainfall, showing the actual rain of the areas that we know about. It's a bit hard to sort of see what's going on, but you can see very heavy rainfall in through here, pretty light rainfall in around Bismarck itself. The temperature is fairly hot. This is a very, very hot planet. So we've got like a hot temperature sort of running through. Being on the South Pole is actually not too bad. It's a bit more temperate, but it does get more and more difficult the further into the actual map you go. In fact, you can see that there's like farmlands. The farmlands tend to be in the South Pole and some in the North Pole, but not that many really through the equatorial regions of the actual planet itself. Any radiation zones, we don't know of any at this stage. Height maps won't really matter that much, but it's just going to give it a bit of an indication as to where there's hills. The tectonic plates are interesting. This is something that hasn't really been introduced into the game fully yet, but the different tectonic plates will be sort of like where you're likely to find different sorts of resources, for example, and maybe even along the borders, but this is something that, as I say, Vic, the developer, hasn't really sort of implemented this fully into the game just yet. And then you've got scavenge points with various various ruins. So we've got another ruin back over this side as well by the looks of things. But anyway, as the map expands, this can be a useful source. Let's just leave that back on nothing and just get back into the actual game itself. Now, if I press the number 1 key, or if I go down into the map layers and go to hide units, we can then sort of see what we just had a look at there. We've got our oil, we've got rare metals, ice, and ruins in through there. Now, this is where we're seeing a word that's sort of saying the Etherin ruins. This is new in the game. This refers to an old world, like an old colonization city. So there was a town here. There was a region called Etherin. Now, there may still be a history about this. Let's have a quick look. Not that it's going to matter for what we're doing right now, but if we just go into reports and go to help and then go to colonization. In fact, if we go to the apocalypse, quite often you'll sort of see if there's something that actually happened. So Zalora, Tellurian, Pelorum. It's not looking like it's actually mentioning that particular location. So that one isn't actually part of the histories. But there was a town there that was part of the colonisation phase. Not where we are, but certainly back in through this side. So anyway, that's just a bit of fun. This is actually a suggestion that I put forward. I've been putting forward a lot of suggestions after I've been doing live streams, and Vic's been incredible. He's been implementing so many of them so quickly. It's just been unbelievable. Now, a few other things we can see from this particular one. We can see that there's a road that extends from Bismarck and then off to this border. Now, it's the people over here that wanted to have the peace treaty. So why not? Because there's no road out there. We don't know what sort of people these are. In fact, if I click on that one and then click on this middle tab in through here, we can then see that these are actually raiders, but there's no road. So like we might as well go to and have peace with them, I think. Like that's actually not a bad thing for us to do. That way we don't have to worry about them. Raiders are a pain in the bum because they will just gobble up territory. Now at the moment, there's nothing of value. You don't get anything for the hexes that you control. You do for the towns that you control inside your territory. And any sort of buildings that you actually have. There's also things called hex perks, and we don't actually have any of those available at the moment. The only things we actually have are these little free folk towns. Now, these aren't part of our empire, but if we make Bismarck attractive enough, the people from these locations will then come into Bismarck itself and join our population. So they're still important. Also, if you happen to take over one of these free folk towns and none of the majors have actually captured it before then, there's a good chance that you will have like old Galactic Republic tech with different sorts of things. It could be resources, could be money, or it could actually be special units. So all sorts of different things are available through there. So just looking at this one here, the value for us is to follow this road and find out where we would need to be attacking. It's looking like this may be where the actual location is. There's a big farm area back in through here. There could be a couple of civilizations. So that should be what we aim for, just militarily. So if we start thinking strategically, and tactically as well. Like strategically, we want to be taking over territories that have got populations, so we can sort of build more centres in the actual game itself. By the way, the actual game, it doesn't show you anywhere on the map. It's very hard to sort of find it, but the actual game itself, if you broke it right down to what you're absolutely trying to achieve all the way through the game, what you're trying to achieve is what's called bureaucratic points. The bureaucratic points are spent in all sorts of different ways within your empire, and particularly later on. But the more bureaucratic points you actually have, the more you can develop, and the more that you can actually then go and do. So bureaucratic points are your most basic resource, but you don't see them anywhere. Like what we see up through here is fate points. We see political points, and we see actual cash or credits that we can actually then sort of spend. They're the operational aspects that we can sort of then go and use turn by turn. But we also, underneath all this, we actually generate bureaucratic points. And these are shown when you come back into here, into your overviews, the Empire dashboard, you'll sort of see there's a whole range of different things in through here. And the one thing that we're sort of seeing through here at the moment, we've got 32 bureaucratic points are being generated by the looks of things. it's going to the Supreme Command Council, and that's being split 50-50. And so with 16 bureaucratic points are being spent on political power to create the political points, and 16 are being spent in general stratagems for us to get cards. So, in fact, we can see there the next turn's BPs. It doesn't say bureaucratic points anywhere in the game, which is quite funny because it really is the most important aspect of the game. And so everything you do will be to try to get more bureaucratic points. But anyway, there's we've got 146 coming in through there next turn. So that will then be spent on the Supreme Command Council. When we bring in a new organisation, like back in through here, the organisations will then sort of, like, and we keep on adding more and more into them, they then have to be allocated a percentage or an amount of the bureaucratic points to then make use of everything. So that's sort of like, if you're trying to think of, okay, what's the absolute goal of the game? The absolute goal of the game is to generate bureaucratic points. Now, how do we do that? We can do it a few different ways, but the most common way of doing it, and we won't be doing this right now, but I'll just talk about sort of what has to happen. We have to make the environment ready. We have to sort of deal with any emergencies and then try to focus on bureaucratic points. If we go to Bismarck, with like the town in through here, and then we go across to this first tab in through here, which is the orders bar. This allowed us to do different things from the within the first SHQ, within Bismarck that we've now got selected, or like any sort of units that we may have selected as well, like if there's a unit that we're focusing on. In this case, we've clicked on Bismarck. We can look at construct, which is our construct menu, and I'm not suggesting we do this just yet, but we just to get a bit of a feel for it. In the government tabs, you're then going to have a few different things that you can then go and do. Now, the High Command HQ, we can upgrade the one that we currently have. In fact, if we have a look and see what we currently have there, if I click on Assets and then click on the actual hex that we're under. Now, if I just click on that one, it's just going to mean that we're only going to be seeing exactly what's under this particular hex. So when we do that one, we can see that we've got like a truck station back in through here, or truck station level 2. And this is sort of how we get our logistics out across the road networks. We've got a high command in through this side, and we can see that it's generating, at the moment, it's generating 9 bureaucratic points from that particular location. So that's sort of where we're getting some of our bureaucratic points at this point in time. So the high command is active. We have the industry, which is generating industrial points for us. We also have a recycling plant, which is generating a little bit of metal, rare metals, and fuel. We have a bureaucratic office, which is generating the majority of our bureaucratic points. And so it's the bureaucratic offices and the high command that are the two sorts of buildings that we need to actually have going. But they both have like a requirement for having workers, so we need to have like enough workers to work them. And also energy. You'll notice that a lot of these different buildings have like an energy or a fuel upkeep. And so we have to make sure that we've got enough of all these things to actually run these operations. And you can see at the moment, like even our fuel, we're generating essentially 31 fuel from here, but it's costing us 60 fuel. So we're only really getting half the fuel that we need. Now, we get a little bit extra in other ways, but that's sort of what's happening when we look at this. Now, all of these that are sort of coloured this grey colour are run by the public sector, so it's run by the government. But there's also a private sector that also runs in the game, a little bit like Distant Worlds to a very loose degree. And so they're generating, they've got like a farm at level 3 back in through here. Now this is actually a more of a Terran type style farm. It's not a dome farm, so they've got like a Terran farm in through there. This over through here is actually a dome farm that we run, which requires 10,000 workers. So a hell of a lot of workers are required to run this particular farm. It requires a fair bit of water, a bit of energy, and it also then has the actual amount of food that it's generating. So at Jarbridge, that's actually that's the farm that we run, and then the private sector also runs their own, where they generate nearly 1,500 food for themselves and then share 182 with us. So that's sort of what they do. They also have then the private credit. So it produces 47 private credits at the start of the turn. So this is a way that the private sector makes a bit of their money. Now, if we go to page 2 of this one, we'll then see that they've also got schools and they've also got a police station. So these are all privately run operations within Bismarck itself. Then finally we have, and whenever you play the game, every major faction will have a degraded LE mini reactor. which will generate 100 power. And so that's our source of power. This is not the same as a sort of reddish colour. This is a more of a greeny yellow colour, or a browny sort of yellow colour. And so this one is actually like an old Galactic Republic mini reactor. And so this is actually, again, how we generate our energy. Now, there'll be other sources of energy around the place, but you've sort of got to juggle all these different aspects, and we'll talk about that in just a minute as well. We have to make an evaluation about all of this spending. In this first episode, I will be going through in quite a bit of depth, so bear with me. It's not difficult, but there is a process to it, and I'll try to sort of reiterate what I've done each time. So I'll just keep on coming back. The first step was to have a quick look through to see what was going on and just look for anything that might be a bit of a gotcha. Now, the bit of the gotcha that we sort of found in through there was a diplomatic decision. We probably do want to actually go yes, and the Emperor of the Pegalar Imperium it would actually be good for us to secure some sort of relationship with the Raiders. Now, it probably won't last, but it's something we could actually go and do that would then secure that border, which would be good for us. So that's a bit of a gotcha. The other gotcha is this zone decision. If I go that way, I don't have enough money to bring in an organisation, and I'll probably be wanting the organisation pretty much early. The next thing we did was have a bit of a look at the strategic map, and just to sort of see who was around us and where things were, with a bit of an idea as to where we're going to be attacking across this road. So that's sort of where we were there, and then we started to have a bit of a look. I was just showing you sort of how the bureaucratic points essentially work. Now, we're going to be evaluating this in a slightly different way. So that little bit of a sojourn off to look at the bureaucratic points was really just to sort of illustrate how they actually work, but it's not something you do on the first turn. Okay, now the first thing I like to do is to go into the management screen and make it after we've done those initial looking around, the first actual aspect of trying to get some decision making done is to go to the management screen. Now, we can do a lot of things from here. Oh, excellent. I'm saying excellent because, again, this is a suggestion that I really wanted implemented. And what I wanted this to start expanded. It used to be, and this is only at this stage, this is only the beta version of the game, but like always, if it starts off like this, expand it and have that as your default view. Now, I don't think I can unclick the SHQ as such. I think I have to, it's always going to go there. I don't even think I can deselect Bismarck. But what this one does is it shows the cities that are under the control of the Supreme Headquarters. Now, sometimes one or two, these may not be actually selected. In fact, I think if I go back out and click over here and then go back into the management screen, no, it's still got it selected. That's okay. But this particular screen is split up into a number of different areas, and we'll come back and talk about each of these. This is not the first one that I start with. I tend to come back and have a look at that one, but this is what we saw in the other page. Like if you go back into the map view and then have a look at the assets for the Bismarck region, or if I go back to the actual the zone selection, we then actually have everything, including that area back over through here. It then sort of shows up. So we then see everything. We've got all these different free folk villages around the place as well, and the number of actual free folk town, the people that are actually in there. Now, we sort of get that with the management screen. We don't get the free folk towns, but we do get everything, all of the actual buildings that we control inside the actual zone itself. So we're looking at the zone production. And what this one does on the side here is actually summarises what's going on. Now, there's also, for the sake of completion, there is actually an items list as well, which is sort of the same thing. So you've sort of got the same sort of deal back and through here. It's slightly different, but I find it easier to use this. But I know that some other people actually prefer to use the other. For example, I'll talk about this in a bit of depth when we get to it. The first thing I like to look at is just to gauge how strong my military is going to be. And if I click on the models, just come across to here. I then click on all to get all of it. It'll go into 2 pages, so you've just got a couple of little things on the second page there. And then the thing I like to click on is design. And what this thing does is it shows me a whole range of different sorts of aspects. Now, the only one I'm really interested in is this first one. This is structural design. Structural design doesn't change through all the iterations of a particular design. Like if we have the grunts as an infantry unit, for example, and so the guards are an infantry unit. If I keep on upgrading the guards, this 93 will never change. It will always be 93. So we have structural design, which is always going to be sort of like, I guess, the underlying benchmark of quality of the actual unit itself. Then we have another thing called base design. Now, base design is something that can change over time through field testing back over through here. So the base design can be really good to have that one high, but this one here, you can never get that one better. Now, these range between 70 and 130. So that's sort of like this, the gamut of the range of your structural design. So anything around about 100 or thereabouts is average, and anything over that is good. So all of these are actually really good designs. That one's a bit under, so the actual basic infantry is not great, but it's not terrible either. The machine gunners are really good. The trucks you don't really tend to worry about because they're not really a combat unit anyway. The buggies are slightly under. The anti-tank guns are slightly under. But the important one for me, more than anything, is actually just to make sure that the blitzer isn't an absolute dog. Now, what this tells me right from the start is that basically in this early part of the game, I don't need to be trying to correct anything. Now, the ones I look at are the blitzer, 99. I look at the buggies, so the recon buggies, 95 is light, but it's okay. I look at the machine guns at 116 is good, and the infantry at 93 is good. The others don't really worry me too much. The other thing I like to have a look at while I'm in here is to go to the ultralight aircraft and click on the actual icon and bring up the information. And what I'm looking for here is how far it can travel. This one has an operational range of 9 hexes. So that means it can fly a fair distance to be able to then go and do what it's going to be doing. So if I just exit out of this one and then go back to the map, and if we have a look at the actual at Bismarck itself, actually I've got things selected, I'll just deselect. But if we go and have a look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it can go a fair distance away, but it's probably not really worth using it, but that's actually fairly healthy. Quite often, these sorts of aircraft might have a range of 6 or maybe 7. But in this case, or if it's lower than that, then definitely ditch them. But I'll just go back and just select that middle one for now. But that is something that we really need to be having a bit of a look at. Like, is it really important that we have an aircraft? Now, if we had like a lot of the borders really encroaching in a negative way, and look, it may be that that's the case down through here. We may want to keep it open, but at the moment, that there is also, remember, it requires an airbase, and the airbase is draining 20 fuel every single turn. So I just do that quick evaluation as to what those basic units are, how they're going, and that's telling me that I don't need a model council as a matter of priority. It's actually going to be okay with what it has got, and the ultralight is actually fairly good. Like, it's a fairly viable aircraft at range 9. So there may be an option to bring them in at some later time, but we don't need them at the start of the game. That's the models. The next thing I like to have a look at is the leaders and have a quick look. This is cool, actually. Oh, God, he's made so many great changes. What we've got through here now is, I don't think we need the natural relation point. Actually, that is now part of what we sort of have in there. But the natural relation point is sort of like where they're likely to end up, and the relationship is where they currently are. So Crux Lenin, for example, has got a relationship with us of 71. And this first one is important, but this one then gives you a bit of a feel for where they're likely to end up. And so one thing I like to have a look at through here is if there's any 3, 4s or 5s. Now, Crux Lenin is a cap 3. Our advisor, Bertie Sillypath, is actually a cap 5, so capability level of 5. What this capability level means is that they can learn very quickly and adapt and become really, really great at whatever we give them to do. And we can see down through here, we don't actually have any extras. We only have literally this particular group of leaders back in here. And based on the cap 5 that we see through there, in fact, if I go and click on capability levels and click back up this way, we can see that we've got Bertie Sillypath is the best of them. If we click on what he's got there, we can then sort of see where his skills actually really do fall. Now, They fall a lot into the inventor areas, and a big wide range of different things back in through there as well. Now, he's probably, I don't want him as an advisor. I think what I want to do is I want to bring someone like him into one of the, probably based on what we can see there with inventor skills. In fact, if we hover over that one there, you can sort of see the inventor is a good scientist, and the skill will aid in the making of tech discoveries. So he would actually be he would be good in charge of one of the more technical organisations that we're going to be bringing in. Now, along with the inventor is often science. Now, he's low on that one, but at capability 5, he will learn incredibly quickly. So we can sort of put him anywhere, but we want to put him somewhere where he's just going to do incredible work. Now, we've also got like a lot of extra things that he's got with gun tactics for combat calculations. We don't want to waste him with this sort of stuff, even though he's very, very good at it. Like, he's got an extremely good group of different things that are going on through here as well. But by all means, just have a bit of a hover over to sort of see, it gives you a bit of a feel for what each of these do. But in this instance, like if he was incredibly good at leadership, for example, or administration, I would probably put him into the Interior Council initially, and then move him out into one of the other technical areas. But I think we're going to start him off in one of the technical areas right from the very, very start of the game. And so that's going to be, because I want to make use of his inventor skills. And I just now have to think, okay, well, which one do I want him to go into? Do I want him to go into the Economic Council or the Military Council? And I'm thinking probably military, so we can start to get some of the more military techs under our control, because we're going to have enough but we're not urgently looking for ice, so we're not urgently looking for materials. We've actually got enough to do, with what we actually currently have. So that's okay. If I had started the tech level 3 start on the game, where I need to then try to get established with energy buildings and so on and so forth, then I would actually probably go with the Economic Council. But in this case, the Military Council is looking like the one that we want to go with. Having a quick look at some of the others. Now, I am worried about this natural relation point in through here with Crux Lenin. Also, you'll notice that he's got like if I click on him, he's got like a halo sort of coming out from around him. It means that he's one of the leaders of one of the government parties. And at the start of the game, there's 2 government parties. So he's in charge of the Merchant Society. So he's actually the faction leader of the Merchant Society. And he's got areas where he doesn't like democracy. Now, we wanted to actually go pro-democracy. And if we have a look at his the natural relation, which is 71 in through there. So your relation level with your leader can vary between 0 and 100. Above 50, you'll receive bonuses on the work the leader is doing. Below 50, you'll receive penalties. But keep in mind that if no leader is assigned, it acts as a relation 0 leader. So it's almost always prudent to assign leaders. So relation loss change log. So -3 due to relation was higher than natural point. So unfortunately, it's going to keep on coming down to that natural point, which is a bit of a problem. The relation point that we see there is 43. And so one part of it is loyalty at 56. One part is job prestige at 50. 2 parts of it, leader profile matched with regime profile, 0. Average of all parts above is 26. Improved for faction having higher relations, so 60. So the new value is 43, but that profile of the leader's profile with that negative democracy is why he is not going to be loyal long term, which is a really big problem for us. The salary effect is not really having any real bearing on him. Not that I want to change that at this stage. And modified for the word score of, at the moment we haven't really proved ourselves of being true to our word. And so in this case, it's 43. And so if we miss a lot of the promises that we make, then that will become more and more of an issue. But this negative democracy is a big, big issue. He's 44 years old. He's a cap 3. So he's really our next best leader. We just have to make use of him. Now, the important things for him are going to be trade and high command, predominantly. But he's going to be a real issue, I think, at the 43. I'm going to have to try to find a way to get him up above that particular limit. Then we have another cap 3 and through here, the commander of the 2nd Light Infantry Brigade. Let's have a quick look at Oscar. Oscar has got operational command there, but it's not really massively great, and he doesn't have much else. He's only 23 years old. But he's a cap 3, which means he can learn other things. So there may be a chance at some point that we bring him into something else. Now, he's pro-democracy. He's not part of any government group. It's funny because Bertie is actually part of the other force, the elite humanist school. He's pro-democracy, and we're going to be going pro-democracy. Isabel is in charge of this particular one. She's the faction leader of the elite humanist school, and she's 39 years old. She's only a Cap 2. These, like, even though she's got better inventor skills, she's not great, to be honest. She's in charge of the Supreme Command Council at the moment, which means that she's the one that's actually generating the like all of the cards for us, all of the political points. So she's okay in that role. I'm just going to keep her in there for now. I'm not going to be chopping and changing. Sometimes a secretary a secretary is a really useless position. And so at Cap 1, that's fine. Ronnie can just stay there. These will make decisions for you if you don't make them. So, but that's not going to worry us. He can just stay as the secretary and so be it. We've also got like a couple of others that are quite weak. Now, unfortunately, the governor is also only a Cap 1, but does actually come with reasonable skills. They just won't improve very much. So he's okay in charge there as well until we can find someone better. And Beatrice, commander of the 1st Machine Gun, it doesn't matter about their skill levels as well. So at the moment, she's okay being in charge of the 1st Machine Gunners. Okay, so that's sort of where we are. We do have a reserve pool member, Tim in through here. And sometimes this character will be the one that we want to use in different positions. He's a Cap 2 with fairly high intelligence, does have good trade skills, but not really enough for us to worry about. I think we're going to be making use of Bertie in the other bits and pieces. So we've had a look at the leader. We've had a look at the models. We know that with the assets, we don't really need the airbase anymore. So we're going to ditch the airbase. So I'm just going to click on the airbase, and I've got a few different options that I can do down through here. I can keep it active but reduce what it's going to be actually producing, so I can put it down to 25% production, which is going to impact any aircraft that are from that location. I can mothball it, which will just keep a skeleton crew working it, but it won't actually require any upkeep. Or I can close it down completely, which means that I just basically destroy it. Now, at this stage, I think closing it is what I want to do. I don't think I need this. I prefer to have more workers going off and filling up these positions in around here. So let's have a look at the screen now, and we'll just go to there and we will actually just close that one down. Now, what's going to happen with this one being closed is it is going to eventually, there's going to be a red bar that will appear back over here, damage to asset. And once this actually hits like a high region, then there's going to be a chance every turn that it's going to then just collapse and become a ruin essentially and no longer appear, and we'd have to then go back and rebuild another one, which is fine because I don't really want them. So that's the first thing we're going to do is just close that one down, and we're no longer going to be paying anything on that one through there. Now, when we have a look at the start of the turn, this is important to just get a bit of a feel for what's going on. You can see through here, anywhere where there's yellows or reds, it means that there's a problem. And so we can see down through here, the water, the zone consumption, it's saying that 450 could optimally be consumed, but 441 actually was. And the one area that was actually not quite working the way that it should work was the agricultural dome 2, which consumed 450 waters. And it was, so 441 was actually available and consumed by the zone, but 450 could optimally be consumed. Now we can see down through there, that's where the 441 is coming in. So that's the only, it needed 450 water and used 441. Now, it does actually have, the zone infantry does actually have 450. So this zone has 450 waters in reserve stocks. But it's also got like a zone pickup. So 1,711 could optimally be delivered to the SHQ. And that was delivered to the SHQ. So where's all this coming from? The zone production is essentially this minus that. So if we get this number minus the 441, we end up with 1711. So the zone production itself was 2152, which was produced, and this is just free production collection, contributed all of that particular water. And so where that's coming from, I'll just sort of explain as to how that actually does work. Water comes from a whole variety. I don't think we can actually see the full amount of where the water would actually be coming from, but we can certainly find out later on. I don't think we can sort of see any specifics in through here. If we go back to the map, what we can see is that we've got like different areas. Like for example, if I click on these areas, I don't know if we can sort of see where there's a bit of rain falling through there. So there's millimetres of rain per year that have fallen on the selected hex this round. So there's a lot of water sort of dropping on the actual ground itself, but it's mainly going to be rivers and like this river in through here, for example. And so if we go and have a look it's got rain falling through there, millimetres of rain on that particular hex. If we've got rivers, we're going to be picking up a lot of free water, and we don't have to have pipes connecting it or anything like that, as long as our border extends out that way. But particularly if we got up into here and got one of these areas around the outside here, what that would then do would be to allow us to just get about 5,000 water per turn from that one. So the more of those sorts of locations we have available, the more we push into these sort of sea locations, the easier that water is. So if you're playing on a more desolate planet and you can't get access to freestanding water like this, then you're going to need to mine the ice back over through here, which we don't need to do. So we don't have that problem. We'll just press number 1 again and bring these units back in. Now, one thing that I've sort of been reading about that people struggle with is actually that they keep on moving and then getting ambushed. And so I'm just going to start to move a few of these units. Now, you don't have to move right up into there in one turn. I'm just going to move up one at a time. There's no reason to go there unless you know it's safe. Let's just go back. Now, see how that didn't move? So that border didn't move. It should have moved if there wasn't something in here. So there's some creature in probably here or here, I would guess. Actually, it wouldn't be there. It must be back in through there. It may be on here, but I don't think so. It may be there, actually. I don't think it'll be there. So we could risk it. If it was there, then it would have taken this location with it extending out. So I think we'll just move on to these hills. Yep, so nothing else is going in through there. But we didn't actually get to push the border back. Let's just test this a little bit and see what happens if we move up into this location. So if I move up to there, we push that one back. Now, what's actually happened here as well, I'll just point out, we're starting to now notice that there's something back over this side. And what you'll see is the recon is starting to sort of show up. Now, we need to get to recon 40 to make good sense of what's going on there. Now, I actually want these guys to move up more along this road, these sort of more red units. So let's just move them up into safe zones like this and just watch as they push back. I'd like to get that little town if we could. May not get it this first turn. Got more reds back and through here. Let's just keep on pushing back. There's something else down this way somewhere. Just keep on moving these across. The 2nd Infantry can move across as well. Now, one thing I have to be careful of is if there are creatures down here, I'm going to need to protect my assets. And I need to protect 2 hexes worth around any assets that we have. So if I press number 1, that's an asset. So the zone that I need to protect sort of goes down through here, and across this way. So I need to make sure that I've got a presence down this way. And so I don't want to just blunder into here, because who knows, there might be something there, but that's safe. So we can go there now and just push back. So there's something, I think, in there. Let's go and move these down as well. Yep, so there's probably something in there, I would guess, which would then mean that we don't get to push those back. Let's just keep them where they are. We now actually have the Mat Basin back and through here, where there's going to be like a lot of water coming in from that location now that we've actually secured this. There's nothing really of great value back over this way. So we'll just move up. I would like to, again, push up into different zones where we can sort of cut things off a little bit. So let's just go and move that one up. Let's push this one back down as well. Get the commander back up there. And I'll just move these units around as well, just a little bit, just to sort of push back. So it looks like we've got a few different units back down in the forest in through this side, but we don't know much about them. Now, as far as the units that we actually have in through this side, we know that we want to head out this way, but we know we're also not going to be able to take over the cities at this point in time very easily. Now, I like to use my militia with the M to sort of secure backwater areas. Now, another thing that I have turned on by default, by the way, is to show the grid, show the colour, and show the operational logistics, which sort of colours it going from green through to yellow, through to sort of cyan, through to red, through to basically black or nothing. Now, that means that if we go into there, we're out of supply. We would need to build roads to get supply going out that way. So I don't like with just military, or with just infantry type units, they can actually survive quite well in the red zones. But if it had anything that required ammunition or fuel or anything like that, they're going to struggle a little bit in the red zone. So food gets into the red zone without any real dramas, but everything else doesn't. We'll talk about that sort of deeper into the actual game. But let's just keep on moving these back up so we can sort of use these units just to focus more on what's going on. Now we've got a few truck units. We might just move that one across, and yep, we've secured that one, and we've secured that one. Let's just get across that little bit of the road, and so we've now got we've now sort of broken across this area of the map, and we're seeing the road now does extend indeed into this sort of region somewhere, so that the town will be in there somewhere. Now they're going to be pushing back against us there. Let's just move this one back on the other side. Yeah, I'll just move these back out this way. Now we've got an anti-air, basically a flak unit. I tend to leave these around as a guard back in the actual city, and then we've also then got the aircraft that we are not going to be able to be operational once we close down that airfield. So with that particular squadron, which you can sort of see in through here, I'm going to go and select all the units by clicking on that one through there, and I'm just going to go and scrap these. And so I'm going to scrap all three of them. And that way we get back some of their fuel, some of their ammo, some of their food, and some of their metal, and some of the actual population will be returned as well. So that's gotten rid of those. That sort of is going to now we're going to have less drain on their resources because of that. I hope this is all making sense. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm trying to sort of go slow enough that it sort of makes a bit of sense. But I know I'm wary of what's in here. So there's something wandering around in through this side that we don't know about just yet. And and if we click on any of these, we can see the recon is 25 in there, it's 23 there, 22, back in through here it's 5. Now, if we hover over this one, we can sort of see that it's telling us that we really require minimum recon for any sort of unit information is 70. So we're a long, long way off getting effective recon at this location. But you can see I've actually set things up. Now there is a zone of control around units as well. It's difficult for a unit to say move from here to here and then go past both of these into this location. Now some units can do it, like Sentinel sort of walkers can do it, but most other units will struggle moving past that. So this is sort of like the minimal aspect of what we want to have is just this zone of control extending around these sort of units just to stop them from wandering past this. Again, we're trying to keep that 2 hex range away from our assets as much as we possibly can. So, and we also do want to have this water supply opened up. So that's pretty much all the units that we can now sort of move. So that's actually okay. Let's go back to our decisions now, because we now have an idea of what we want to be doing. So with the decisions, we've got and again, we've only got 12 points to spend, so we don't have very much. So now this is something where he's pro enforcement, and because he's going to be such a difficult one for us to control when we start to do all of the diplomatic decisions, which won't be that far away, we need to get him as high as we possibly can. So just having that information, actually one thing we don't know is if we click back into anywhere in our zone and just go to Dystopia, we can see that the Elite Humanist School has actually got 92% of the vote at the moment. So that's she's the one that's controlling this one here, which is good. So Isabel is actually the Prime Minister or the President, if you like, of the actual government at this point in time. So she's in charge, and the Merchant Society's only got 8% of the vote. So not really a very popular grouping at this point. So, but he's still going to be a troublemaker. So let's just go across and go with him just to get his happiness up. It will keep on dissolving each turn because that natural point won't dissolve. But we'll go that way. So that's 1 point gone. We're now down to 11. It's important when we had a look that we want to actually move the advisor into the Military Research Council. Now, one of the problems we may have with that is that it may take a little bit. If we just go back across to our leaders again and have a look at Bertie and call him up, what's the cost to relieve him? If we click on relieve, I can go 8 pp or 4 pp. I won't be wanting to afford 12. So it's going to cost me a little bit just to pull him out of this job. So there's a few things there we have to consider as well. At this point in time, we're just going to keep him where he is. But I just wanted to have a bit of a look. So 8 would be ideal, just so that he doesn't get too unhappy. But we're going to put him in charge of the Military Research Council. So we're going to spend another 4 with that one coming in. All right. Now, that means we can no longer afford to upgrade to a big town, which is the one that we were sort of like, it would have been good to do that. By the way, I will talk about this later on, but essentially the smaller the town, the happier the population will be to a degree, but they won't grow quickly. And really, the growth is very, very important. So when you've got a zone that is happy, upgrade. is essentially the rule of thumb. If they're really not happy, or if you're trying to sort of get the happiness up, don't upgrade. So in this case, we're just going to do Ask Me Later, but I would have liked to have upgraded that one. So that's a 1 pp. We're down to 6. And then we have this one here, 1 pp. It's going to be basically a heart decision. Now, the hearts are the profiles back in through here. So she's pro heart. If we have a look and see what she's got, she's going to have a heart with a plus next to it. And so for her, that's actually a positive. And if we went with fist, which she's a negative with, then she would have it would go -4. But in this case, yeah, we do want to do that anyway. That does align with what we want to be doing and securing the West. Okay, so that's actually now been done. And so the relation with the Pelagar Imperium went up by plus 60 points, which is actually a hell of a lot. So that probably won't be such a problem to us. Now, what we'll see when we do this, zipping around all over the place, that border will now change colour. And so this Pelagar Imperium, we're now at peace with them and we've got a relationship with them of 90. So they're extremely happy with us. But having said that, they don't actually have any assets. So there's still going to be essentially a problem. So they're just going to be sitting out in this region. We'll eventually try to secure everything else that we can actually have through there. Okay, so that's sort of where we are initially with our first lot of decisions. The next thing we really have to think about before we end our turn is building things. Like we've only got 5 political points left over. We've got 381. I'll just go back into here so we can sort of see what's going on. These are the resources that we actually have from the first SHQ. So food is going up, water is going up. By the way, like if you're playing on a desert world, really have a close look at this, because you may find that your water is going to feed you for 3 turns or something like that. But then after that, if you don't have water allocated, then you're going to be in a world of pain. Other things you may want to sort of be just a bit wary of is the amount of industrial points that you have, because this will drain very, very quickly as well. And ultimately, your energy as well will also then drain away if you build anything sort of too big. So we have to think, okay, what are we going to build? And I've already spoken at the start of this episode that one of the things that you may want to consider is that you want to get the bureaucratic points. And if we just click on Bismarck itself, we will potentially go out and build one of these. Now, the game has changed a little bit, where you can see we're getting 10 of these through the scavenging that we're doing in Bismarck. But we've got 41. Now, one thing that's changed in the game, and I think this is for the better, is if you go to trade, they'll tend to always trade. Look, if you can sell certain things, they'll often trade things that even at a really, really poor price, like things like water, for example, you could still technically sell it. So if I go to them and actually say, okay, I'm going to sell all of my water, I can do this. And you can see there I'm actually going to get 315 credits for it. So this is actually now a bit more of a source of income for us. Let's actually go and sell, say, around about 230 credits. Actually, I should point out, let's actually stop that and just talk about why I'm focusing on the money now. You sort of think, okay, 381, what do I need to spend it on? There's nothing for me to spend it on. Next turn I'm going to have 381. No, you won't. The way it works is, and if we just go back to the overviews again, down through this one, you've got the Treasury Cash Flow Overview. So click on that one there and have a bit of a look. Until we get taxation going, which really does require the internal council or the Interior Council. This is why sometimes this can be a very, very good one to get. At the moment, we're just generating 14 credits through the population, which is nothing. We really need to have the taxation up. By the way, if you're playing on a hard level, you don't want to go above 30%. And if you're playing anything lower than hard, you can go up to 40%. So as your income tax. But this is where you're going to get most of your money ultimately. So the Interior Council is quite important to bring them in. But then you'll sort of notice that that's the income tax. We're getting 14 coming in. Then we have a lot of things going out. So we've got Salaries and bonuses, we're actually paying a fair bit. Public investment, we're not paying anything for that one there, but we are paying recruitment. So we're actually paying for troops to be recruited, and also for workers. So worker salary, we're providing 108 credits per turn just for worker salaries for the workers to work the public sector of Bismarck. And we're paying 8 credits, which is not very much, so we don't have to worry too much about the recruitment. But the recruitment does take colonists out of Bismarck to join the army. So this is recruits back over here. We're generating 500 per turn at the moment, and so that's also a source of expense. Plus, we then actually have the soldiers and leaders' salaries back in through here. And so you can see the soldiers we're not paying anything for at the moment, and we should really pay them something at some point. We'll do that one fairly soon. But most of the others, you can sort of see we actually do have, like, reserve pool members get something. The one that doesn't actually get anything is actually the secretary as well. They're on 0. So that's 17 credits, but by far the most that we're spending is on the actual workers. And so you add these up, and then you end up essentially with a bit of a summary down the bottom here. So we have 14 credits of revenue and 133 credits of expenses, which essentially means we need to have 120 credits per turn coming in to actually cover the cost of the current empire. That's actually something we should be aware of. So don't ever let this drop below 120 at this stage, or whatever that number is when you look at this. Figure it out for yourself as to, okay, that's my expenses, that's my income. What do I need to keep that going? So if you can trade with the traders, particularly in the first turn, they're going to be paying fairly good money for things like water, and ultimately they won't pay much after that. So we can give them a fair bit of water. Like, we've got a fair amount there. So let's go and say give them that much water. So we can just sell that. So I'm in the sell tab back over here.
Yes, sir.
That's good. We got 224 credits. That's basically a nearly 2 turns worth of expenses. It doesn't update this, but I can always close it off. Now they've got 639 credits available for purchase. This is actually fairly good at 10.46, and I don't need these at this stage. So let's go and sell all of those off. So we're going to get 441 credits. Now sometimes actually you may want those. I'll go through. I'll just go cancel. We've already now made that sale. So we've got a bit of money there. One thing that you may want to be doing is that sometimes you're going to be needing to get machines to then go and build your actual buildings. Like, for example, if I go down and click down here, for example, to build a mine at this location, and I go to construct and go to mining, you'll then actually this one requires, it's going to take 2 rounds to build it with 1 machine per round. So this is what's required per round to build it. 125 metal, 125 industrial points to go and grade that one. Then when it's running, it's going to take 1,100 workers and 20 energy to produce 75, or around about 75 rare metals, as an example. And you'll notice that most of these mines will take 2 rounds with 2 machines. So we need to get 2 machines. So we have to think, okay, well, how are we going to do those 2 machines? One way we can do it is we can go to the workshop, and I'm flipping around, but this is tied in with the trade, so just bear with me. So we've got 133 metal, 41 rare metals, and 195 industrial points. Now, to build one machine, it's going to cost me 20 metal, 20 rare metals, and 20 industrial points. So I can build 2 machines because of the rare metals. That's the limiting factor. By doing that, I then also spend metal and industrial points as well. So that's essentially, at the moment, the 41 is worth 2 machines to me. And plus, it's more expensive than that, but that's essentially what that 41 is worth to me. I'm just going to cancel that. If we now go back to trade and have a look and see, if we just go back to the buy area, we've got the machines in through here. These cost 60 credits, and so and there's only 2 machines available anyway. So let's just go and buy those at 120 credits. Which, if we have a look and see what we can buy, if we sell the rare earth metals, we can get double what it costs us, plus we get to keep all of our metal and industrial points. So this is much, much more valuable to us to actually sell them at this price and pick up the 2 machines that are available So this is one thing that's going to be changed in the game now. There's going to be less stuff available for you. So you do need to manage things a bit better. Like there's been a bit of work done now on trying to make this all work. So these are worth 60.48 credits. And so we're going to buy both of those. Now, when we buy these, it's going to then bump the price up the next time as well. So we'll just go and do that one for 120 credits.
Yes, sir.
So we'll buy those. And we're then going to go back and sell. So they've now got extra money here if we had other things to sell. So let's go and sell the credits for 441 because I don't think we're going to get better price than this.
Yes, sir.
So let's go and sell all of that because we don't have any need for that now. And we've still got food as well. We're actually making good food. Look, on some planets you would never do this, but in this case, because we've got lots of water and we've got lots of food, in fact, the water's going to be great anyway. I think we might even sell another 50 credits worth in through there. Just keep a little bit going. And the food, let's sell, they've only got 267 credits. So if I sell the 224 food, that's going to then sort of, in fact, if we go back to buy, is there anything else we want? We can buy radioactive. We don't really need that one. No machines are available anymore. Now we can get, they've got 98 metal. I can actually get that metal for 187. I might do that actually because metal is always a hard one to get initially. So let's go and grab that. Fuel at 165
yes,
as well.
Sir.
I wouldn't mind just getting a little bit extra there. They've only got 25 fuel anyway, so let's go and buy the fuel off them. And this is going to then impact what happens with the other players on the map as well. And then the food, we're just going to go back to selling the food. So they've got 497 credits available for purchasing, so we're going to go and strip out their food. We're going to sell basically all the food and get all this money back again.
Yes, sir.
There we go. So we're doing everything. They don't have any more funds left to buy anything. So we've now stripped them out. We've got 1,200 worth of money, which is basically 10 turns. So we've got 10 turns to be able to then do what we need to do. And I think we're in a good position now. Like we've actually been able to sort of get the 2 machines that we require if we want to be building one of these. Now we've got to think, okay, well, what do we want to be building? Do we want the metals? Do we want the oil? Do we, is the oil that we actually have, if we go back to our management screen and go back to assets again and have a bit of a look at this one. If you go to preview as well, by the way, you can sort of see, have a look at this as well and just see if there's any yellows that come up. But at the moment, that looks very, very healthy. So that's actually our production for the next turn. You can see there the machines that we actually have got in the inventory back and through this side. But that's all looking very, very healthy. We can sort of have a bit of a look to sort of see, what we're likely to then sort of have in the next phase. Like the food is likely to go up. The fuel is likely to go up. So that's actually good as well. Actually, maybe not, because we did actually pull apart those elements. Actually, we've got a slight increase there, so we don't have to rush getting the fuel. So we could actually look at the bureaucratic points and actually maybe sort of go that way with the building. So rather than actually build the mines, quite often if you're playing on a more desperate sort of planet, you've really got to get those mines established. But in this case, do we want to get more rare metals so we can actually sort of make more money? That may be another way for us to go. Is that going to ultimately get us to where we want to go a bit earlier? Let's just go back to the map again and go back to Bismarck itself and just go back into construction and have a bit of a look. So we can't build any more agricultural facilities back in through there. By the way, we've got 3 different ones that we can do. We've got xeno-agricultural facilities back in through this side. Now, we're not going to... I'll talk about this actually in another time, but that's not going to be really viable for us on the planet. But this one here is for earth plants, which is probably going to be okay. And then we have the dome facilities, which is what we currently have. Now, these require a lot of water but no energy. And so it may be viable for us to ditch the dome that we currently have and go back and build just a farming facility somewhere else. And that will then sort of strip away the forest as well when we do that one over time. Okay, so we've got mining back in through here. We can upgrade the recycling facility if we wanted to get even more of these basic resources. We can build a solar panel field as well, but we would need 100 of the rare earth metals to do that one, so we don't want to do that one just yet, but we will need to do it at some point. We have to be a bit wary of that. Like that's something we will have to be careful of. Industry back in through here. Industry 2 is going to be way too much. It's 4 rounds, which means we need 4 machines, and it's going to cost me a lot. in metal construction to be able to do that. So we can't do that one just yet. If we were on a planet that didn't actually have any actual oil, like there was no life on the planet, then we would have to build a biofuel refinery at some stage. This is 3 rounds, which is fairly cheap, but it requires 200 food to run it to get 200 oil. So that's sort of how we would then generate oil if we were on a desert world with no life. Government buildings, as we looked at before, I do want to get the as much bureaucratic points as I can. Now I can get 200 down through here if I can get to civilization level 2. I should talk about that, but we're already now over an hour again on this one here. The civilization level, very loosely, is tied into the benefits that you provide. Like, for example, the hospitals will give various quality of life. The quality of life, this is health quality of life. You've got security quality of life in through here as well. Plus, you also then get a little bit of training bonuses as well if you get the barracks. Radiation centre is not a quality of life area, but those two actually are. So that's actually something we could actually build if we wanted to sort of try to rush towards this one to get the 200 bureaucratic points. As I said earlier, bureaucratic points is the name of the game, but you need to make sure the infrastructure can handle what you're building. Now, 40 energy and 7,000 workers, there's a hell of a lot. But this one up through here, even at 40 energy, is actually still not bad. We also get political bonus point production per round. So we get a big boost to political points there as well. So this one for me doesn't require any of the machines that we got, but we can afford to build this one over the course of 4 rounds. Or we go back and look at maybe getting this one here, because we are going to need to get energy at some point. I might start with this one here. Now, when I go to here to go and construct the rare metals mine, the rare metals mining facility back and through this side, it's going to require 125 industrial points per turn. And we've got 195 and we're generating 92. So we'll be okay with that one there, except that when we do this, it's also then going to add a road in from wherever the closest road is into that location. So there will be, if I press the R key and then look at dirt road, this is 20 IP per hex. So if I click on there and have a bit of a look at that one, it's actually 24 to actually build the road there. So it's going to be 24. I can build the road myself, or I can let them do it, but one way or another it's going to come out of our coffers, out of industrial points to build that particular road. In this instance, I think what I will do is I will build this one first, just so I can got that as income, and so I can then start to build the power, and then I'll go back to build the other one. So let's just go and construct. But again, depending on what your circumstances are, you may have a very, very different idea of what you need to build. In this case, though, mining, rare metals mining facility, start construction. There's our two machines in through there. And because I think that we're going to be able to then make better use of those, and then eventually we'll get this one as well. Okay, so that's pretty much the first turn. We've now got this one underway. Now, what I don't want to be doing, you can see there that we've now lost the 24. It was 195 before. We've lost the 24 from building that road, and now it's going to start to build this next turn. And so it doesn't show that has to come out of this equation. It will just take it out next turn. And so, yeah, we're going to be sort of struggling a little bit with, and maybe metals as well. We might have to come back and build the metal mine before we build anything else in Bismarck itself. Anyway, guys, I will actually leave it there. That's sort of going to be the end of this turn. We've done everything that we needed to do. There's a lot to cover in the first turn, but then after that, we start to get a bit more of a feel for what the specific elements that's being thrown at us on the actual planet itself. And in this case, it's all looking pretty cool. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next episode.